Entry 734. Subject: the redacted anomaly. Its initial manifestation was dismissed as localized atmospheric distortion. We recorded the data. But then, the data screamed otherwise. The first reports were catalogued on March 14, 1987, originating from a remote research outpost designated Site Psi-7. Anomalous energy signatures. Fluctuations in the local gravitational constant. Then, the auditory hallucinations began. Not random noise, but coherent whispers. Voices that spoke forgotten languages. The outpost's lead physicist, Dr. Eris Thorne, a staunch materialist, initially theorized a previously unknown seismic resonance. His instruments, however, offered no corroboration. The method was this: only silence. And the whispers. Personnel logs from Site Psi-7 detail a gradual erosion of objective reality. Solid objects shimmered. Shadows moved independently. The air itself began to feel heavier, colder. This wasn't a malfunction. This was a deliberate interference. The human cost was immediate, profound. Dr. Thorne, after 72 hours of continuous exposure, began to describe his own internal organs as vibrating out of phase. His hands, he claimed, were no longer entirely his. They belonged to the whispers. His neurological scans, post-containment, displayed cortical patterns inconsistent with any known pathology. His brain was reorganizing itself around non-physical input. But this wasn't the first time the material world had fractured under an unseen pressure. Records indicate similar anomalies, coded as ontological drift events, dating back centuries. Project Chimera, established in 1952, was designed to categorize these breaches. One file, designated Case 41 Delta, details a monastic order in the Carpathian Mountains, circa 1688. Their texts, now classified, spoke of the Great Dissolution, a period where the veil between worlds thinned. The location will shock you. Villagers reported seeing deceased relatives walk through walls, not as specters, but as solid, yet translucent, beings. The Church, in its wisdom, declared it heresy. We now recognize it as a manifestation of a localized reality inversion. The materialists of the era, the early natural philosophers, dismissed these accounts as mass hysteria or demonic influence. Their instruments, primitive as they were, could not detect the subtle shifts in quantum entanglement. They could not quantify the emotional resonance. They lacked the framework. They still do. Our current models, built on the bedrock of observable physics, struggle to contain the implications. How does a thought, a pure intention, manifest physical force? Step 1. How does consciousness itself become a vector for reality alteration? We have documented instances where the collective belief of a small community, focused on a specific outcome, induced measurable changes in the local environment. A rainstorm in a desert. A sudden, inexplicable harvest. These were not coincidences. But there was one detail. They were controlled variables. Or uncontrolled, depending on the perspective. The data from Project Chimera suggests a fundamental flaw in our understanding of causality. That the spiritual realm, so long relegated to myth and superstition, might possess its own physics. A physics that operates outside the four dimensions we perceive. A physics that can rewrite the rules. Consider Subject 88 Beta, designated the Architect. A child, born with no discernible neurological abnormalities, yet capable of altering the molecular structure of objects through sheer will. A spoon, observed under high-speed cameras, would spontaneously bend. Not through applied force, but through a localized, inexplicable distortion of its atomic bonds. Material science offered no explanation. The child merely felt it could be so. This feeling was the mechanism. The energy signature was beyond quantification. The human cost here was different. The architect existed in a world where physical laws were suggestions. The psychological burden of such power proved insurmountable. Isolation was the only containment. A life unlived, to protect the integrity of a reality it could dismantle. The conflict isn't just philosophical. It's a battle for the very nature of existence. Materialism dictates a predictable, measurable universe. Spiritualism suggests an underlying, often chaotic, intelligence. What if both are incomplete? Here's what really happened. What if reality is a negotiation? A constant, dynamic interaction between the tangible and the intangible? We discovered anomalies in the deep ocean trenches, far beneath the crushing pressure. Structures, not geological, not artificial. Self-assembling crystalline formations that emitted a low-frequency hum. This hum, when analyzed, contained complex mathematical sequences. The moment changed everything. Sequences that described geometries impossible in our three-dimensional space. These structures were not built. They manifested. They were thought, forms made solid. The materialist explanation failed. No known process could account for their genesis. The spiritualist, perhaps, would call them monuments to an ancient consciousness. We called them vector points. Points where the membrane thins, where the material world becomes porous. The implications are staggering. If reality is permeable, what else can bleed through? What intentions, what forgotten entities, are waiting on the other side? The actual reason, the data from Site 7, from Case 41, Delta, from Subject 88, Beta, all point to a singular, terrifying conclusion. Our physical universe is merely a projection, a consensus, and that consensus is weakening. The silence in the archives, the hum of the servers, the faint smell of ozone and dry paper, they all speak of an impending shift. A shift where the lines blur beyond recognition. Place where the whispers become audible to everyone. Where the material world, as we know it, becomes merely one interpretation of an infinitely more complex, infinitely more dangerous truth. Are you prepared for the dissolution of constants? For the moment when the unseen becomes undeniable? When the data, once purged, resurfaces in your own mind? The initial manifestation was dismissed as localized atmospheric distortion. We recorded the data. The data screamed otherwise. The answer was out there. But would anyone find it?